Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody got a thumbs up. Alyssa and I are, I think we're well known for technical issues.
Yeah. All part of the process.
Right. So, I want to welcome Julie here to the Connection Circle. This is Telos's Connection Circle, and we do talks with a variety of coaches and different people different people with different backgrounds. And Julie certainly has a fascinating background, and one of triumph and love. And um, I don't even want to talk about it because I'm going to give her the floor in a moment here. But Alyssa and I are super excited to have her here to share her story. And so I'm going to open the floor to you, Julie. And actually, let me back up. Because a moment ago we weren't recording, and I do want to share the story of how we met. I was in Germany for a few months, and I connected with Julie via a company that's called Juice Plus. And I'm an advocate for healthy living, and Juice Plus is one way that you can do that to support a healthy lifestyle, a healthy body. And so we connected in that way. We tried to connect on a Zoom call. We never did, but we definitely connected energetically. And I've just been following her story for the past 4 years. And we've remained friends on Facebook. So I'm just so excited to have her here today in the Connection Circle. So with that said, Julie, I'm going to have you just give a little bit of a bio, your background, like what do you do for work, and are you married or single?
Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for inviting me here. I'm really super excited to be here. Yes, so I am married. I've been married to my lovely husband Nigel since 2014. My background is in beauty therapy, holistic therapy, and various roles, but always kind of customer service, caring about people and caring about well-being. So that's my background. Now, I was a practicing holistic therapist, and then COVID came and shut my therapy room down. But I'd already partnered with the Juice Plus company, and was able to help people right around the world with nutrition and well-being. So I had that online community, and really, actually, when the restrictions were lifted, I found that I'd increased my business so much that I didn't particularly want to open up my holistic therapy room again, because it was just, I could help so many more people, and also I wasn't then tied to appointments and clients and massage, etc. Although I do kind of miss it, but it's something that I can go back to if I want to. So that's my background, is really, and right from a tiny child, I found a photo of myself dressed in a nurse's uniform with 2 dolls. And I actually put a photo on Facebook a few weeks ago with the same dolls. I still have them. I'm still caring for them. So that's like 50 odd years later. So I've always had that kind of caring nature. So that's pretty much my background.
I love that. What beautiful story. Yes. And it does, I think it does start early, wanting to care for people. I think, also Alyssa has a similar story. I mean, I think we all do, right?
I was just going to say that we all have a very similar background coming from, the health and wellness standpoint, and caring and wanting to just care and share our knowledge and our skill and this gift of health with people. And when it pertains to all other aspects of coaching, I mean, everything starts with that core of health, right? Healthy body, healthy mind, healthy finances, healthy relationships. So having that background, I just love that. And I can see where that has taken you in so many different directions in life, just having that background.
I've always been involved in in various companies as well. I mean, I worked in a library at one point, well, for about 8 years, and I loved that. I love talking to people. I've done customer service. I'm very much a people person. That's what I am. Yeah. So
Yes. And congratulations on your long-standing marriage.
thank you.
Yes.
Always love to hear those success stories.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
As two single women.
Oh, it's my second one. My first marriage was 16 years. We have our children together, but he was never really my soulmate. But we kind of rubbed along, you know. But that came to an end. And then I met Nigel I've known him for a long time, but we actually got together in 2012 and then got married in 2014. So do you want me to say a bit about what happened to our, with our relationship?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, how did you decipher kind of like your previous connection with your husband now, right? The difference in knowing that much more meaningful connection.
Well, we'd known each other for a while before we started going out together, and but I'd was just out of a marriage, and he was getting a quite a nasty divorce at the time. But we were friends, you know. He was a work acquaintance of my brother, so I'd known him for a long time and seen him kind of, roundabout and stuff, and thought, oh, he's nice, and we always got on really, really well. But the time was never right. But we did have that connection. You know, when you connect with somebody, there's that. It was just really easy around him. Anyway, I kind of I heard on the grapevine that that actually he was single again, and he'd heard that I was. But sometimes waiting for the other person to make the move. That I've always been quite forward in asking him, for what I want. So he'd got a work van, so I got his mobile phone number off the side of his work van and just rang him, and I said, look, do you fancy going out for a drink? And he said, oh, okay. So because I thought if I wait for him, I might be waiting a long time.
No, I love it. I think that more and more women should be more assertive, right? Why wait? Because men can be free.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he could have easily said no, but then you think, oh well, nothing ventured, nothing gained sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's right. Oh, sorry.
It worked out really well. I love that story. That is, you knew that the connection was there,
yes.
And you wanted to explore that more.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So it was just easy, we just had this very nice energy, and we were just really comfortable around each other. So yeah,
that's important, right? When you know that you have that soulful connection, that energetic connection. So let's get into your personal journey a little bit more, because you do have quite a journey with Nigel, and I just want our listeners to know that we will put a link about Julie's story in this video, and because it is public and it is a beautiful story, it's really going to touch your hearts. And so I think maybe just hear a little bit more about that personal journey. And I'm just looking at my notes because I don't want to miss a thing. And just kind of, moving towards what Alyssa was asking about, that, that soulful connection and how you knew and how that transition happened.
Okay, so if we go back to 2014 when we got married, which was the November, Nigel had actually, I'd moved home to look after my elderly mother, who was in her late 80s, and she'd just been diagnosed with a brain tumour. She was showing symptoms of Parkinson's disease, but they said they couldn't understand. It wasn't that, they didn't really know what it was. It turned out to be a very rare brain tumour called an acoustic neuroma, which was here at the back of her head. So it was causing her to be deaf and in one ear and lose her balance and show signs of dementia, although she didn't have dementia. And by the time they found out what it was too big to operate. So basically, we spent our first year looking after my mum. or first 2 years really, looking after my mum. And she passed away in the June of 2015. So we'd got married in the November previously. And my mum loved Nigel. He's a real gentle giant. He's a really lovely guy. And to be newlyweds, and obviously we're both older, I'm 56 now, he's 58, but we had that life experience to be able to look after her and still look after our own relationship. So when mum passed away, obviously it was very traumatic, but we kind of began our married life then as a proper couple after she'd gone, and I was still grieving. We were both still grieving for her. So that was June 2015. This time of year in December, it's always quite tricky for us because so on the 19th of December, we're massive music fans, we go to a lot of concerts, and we went to see a group called Def Leppard in Sheffield, which is their hometown. It's not too far from us. We had a brilliant night. That was on the Sunday. A week later, so it would be 2 days after Christmas, actually, Nigel was an amateur speedway rider, motorbike. But locally, we have a sand race. So they race on the beach. It's all organised. And so he said, do you want to come with me? And I said, no. We've got family coming that week. We was planning a New Year's Eve party. So I said, I'll get the house ready and, you go off and play with your friends. It was a beautiful winter's day, really cold, bright blue sky, sunshiny. And I could hear the bikes from where I am. It's about 2 miles up the coast. But it was so still, you can hear them when they're racing. Anyway, I thought, I'll stop and have a break. And my phone rang, and it was Nigel's photo that came up, but it wasn't him. It was his best friend on the phone. And he said, I don't want you to worry, but Nigel's had an accident. But can you get here as soon as you can? So at that point, I knew that there was something really wrong. So I got my daughter's partner, actually, because everybody else was kind of busy and whatever. And I said, can you just take me? Because I was in a bit of a state. I said, can you take me to the beach racing? Nigel's had an accident. And by the time I got there, which was about 15 minutes later, he was already in the air ambulance, because we're quite remote. So they have, I don't know if they have it in USA, but we have like an ambucopter, an air ambulance that will come out to remote areas. And they're always on standby when they're racing and everything. So he was actually already in the air ambulance by the time I got there, and he was unconscious. And they said, don't worry, we've got him stable, because it'd been fitting at the scene, because he'd gone into the only obstacle on the beach, which was a brick wall. And it had taken him into the water, so he was essentially drowning. But the two friends went and rescued him, but he was starting to fit, so they had to sedate him to stop the fits. So anyway, they airlifted him to our local hospital, which is about 60 miles away. So we followed, obviously, in the car, and then from then on, he was on life support all over Christmas and New Year. New Year's Day, they sent him for an MRI scan. So that took about 6 hours, because they had to take him off intensive care in an ambulance to another part of the hospital to do this full body scan, and then get him back on the ward on the ICU successfully. It was really, stressful for him and for the nurses. He hadn't been conscious since the accident, and every time they tried to resuscitate him, he couldn't breathe. So they didn't really know what was wrong. So after, I think it was 9 hours, we were called into what I call the room of doom, and the consultant said, I'm really sorry. He said, but we think that he's got a really severe brain injury, and we don't think he's going to survive. And if he does survive, he will probably be hooked up to machines for the rest of his life. This was on New Year's Day. It was a Friday. And I said, I can't lose him. I said, we've only just got, I will not lose this man. And I said, can you please give him the weekend? So they agreed, because it was Christmas and New Year, and they were very short staffed. They'd got 22 high dependency patients on the ward that needed 24-hour care, and only there was a registrar and a consultant. Each patient had their own team of nurses. It was incredible. They worked so hard. So they agreed to give him the weekend, and I would go in every evening. Well, I was there all the time. I stayed at the hospital, but that you could only go in at certain times, because obviously, they've got a job to do. But I would play him music and one day I think, I can't remember what day it was. It's no good saying I can't remember. He cried. I saw this tear, and I said, "He can hear this music. He's in there. I know he's in there." And they said, "Oh, no, he's not. It's just secretions." And I thought, he's not, because that was our favourite song, and he's crying. So on the Monday, as they were going to reassess, he opened his eyes. It was incredible. It was like a miracle. And by the Wednesday, he was sat up in bed, and nobody knows how or why, or they called him Miracle Man, because he really should not have survived. So that day, my family said to me, "Mum, go home. I barely slept in 11 days. Well, sleep deprivation and stress is a killer." So my mental health started to spiral. So by the time I got home, I was literally going psychotic. The stress just broke me. I think it's because when you're in that situation, you just keep going for as long as is necessary. And when you relax, everything comes crashing down, and you actually realise, what's happened, and the seriousness and the stress and the sleep deprivation. So that's what happened to me, and that was on the Wednesday, and by the Friday I've been sectioned. So Nigel was going from strength to strength. We didn't know at that point he'd lost most of his eyesight. They thought it was just the drugs he was coming around from that. But he's got a condition called purchase retinopathy, which you get with a head injury, where the head and the brain swell, and it had ruptured the optic nerves. So although his eyes work, he's always worn glasses, but although his eyes work and his brain was working, the connection between the two is gone. So they said sometimes it can come back after 6 months, but if it doesn't come back after 6 months, then that's it. So we didn't know that at that point, because obviously we were both in a state. So I was sent to a hospital, a psychiatric unit, about 200 miles away, which probably in the USA doesn't sound far, but in the UK it's a long way. We have no beds in our county for mental health at all. And they knew
real quick? Sorry, was that voluntary or was that recommended, or
no? No, it wasn't. No, no, there was a lot of things that happened that were very out of character. And I can remember quite clearly. I was quite violent. I came home and I just literally destroyed our bedroom. I destroyed anything that meant a lot to me, because I thought people would listen if they could see me destroying things that I love, then they would understand how serious things were. It all made sense to me, but it kind of does when you're in that psychosis. But looking back on it now, it wouldn't have made sense to people living in the material world whatsoever. So anyway, I was sectioned, and I think it takes 2 doctors to section you, basically. But my main thing was nobody would listen to what I was saying. And because they wouldn't listen, I had to get louder and bigger and louder. So that was, I think that's a massive thing. If you're dealing with mental health, I mean, I'm no expert, only by experience, but I think listening to people, even if it sounds ridiculous, is really, really important. So anyway, so I went down to this hospital, and they knew what had happened. And I said, look, they're going to let him home in 2 weeks, and I need to be home. Well, that was after about a week, actually, because I wasn't really in a fit state when I got there. But as I started to get better, and I realised what had happened, and we were talking about it with the staff, and they said, right, okay, well, apparently he's coming home on the 27th of January. We can, if you're okay, we can send you home on the 26th, which is what they did. However, I was not in a position to be looking after anybody, and he was in no position to be coming home. We were in a dreadful state, because then you realise just what's happened. And he couldn't see, he realised he had his own business, and he'd lost his business because obviously he couldn't drive anymore. He's an auto electrician. He couldn't see the wires to work. and obviously the bills need paying. They still need paying when you're self-employed. If you don't work, you're not on a company sick pay or whatever.
Right.
So we had all that stress and everything. And then we also had a very bad situation with his ex-wife who wouldn't leave us alone. This was before the accident, and we'd had to take her to court because she was quite a nasty person. And she kept phoning up and like literally shouting and bawling at us down the phone. And so that was a really bad situation. And we ended up going to court. And we had a barrister, and he wanted me to go in court with him. And I said, I can't, Nigel, I'm not strong enough. And he said, no, I need you there with me. So I went into the court and faced his ex-wife, and nobody would represent her because she was telling so many lies. But she actually chased me out of the courtroom until I was in the corner again like this, saying, leave me alone. And I was sectioned again 2 days later. But the thing was, because he was struggling so much, he literally was on at me 24/7. And I literally did not know what my name was by the time that they'd finished with me. I was sat on the back doorstep, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the sun, thinking, if I go blind, he'll be able to see again. That's what state I was in. So I was sent to another hospital again, hundreds of miles away, but a different hospital. And it turned out to be an abusive environment, and I was kept in there for a month. I was only supposed to go for a week, and I had to fight to get out of there. So I managed to get out because I managed to get an advocate who said, this lady should not be here, and I'm going to get her out today. And he did, and he got me home. And from the 4th of April 2016 is when we started our recovery. So it's nearly 8 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been a bit of a it's been a lot of a roller coaster, to be honest with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what a beginning. And I mean, I think a lot of people go through real life circumstances and the emotions kind of come crashing down, and there's no really, you don't have the tools sometimes to deal with that. And what an incredible story. And here you are today, 8 years later. And gosh, be so proud of you and proud of both of you, and for, moving through all of that. And I will, again, remind everybody that there will be a link in this video, more details about Julie and Nigel's story. And it certainly goes a little bit more in depth, I think. And so incredible. And your journey from there, once you were home and you started your recovery, well, what did the recovery steps look like?
Baby steps. I was very heavily medicated on antipsychotics when I first came home, and I don't know if anybody has any experience of that kind of medication, but they bring your mood down, so they make you very zombie-like and low energy. And because I had low energy, I was really struggling to function normally. I'd be awake for about 4 hours in the day. I had no motivation to do anything, cooking wise. We lived on cheese on toast, grilled cheese. And
But you survived.
Pardon?
But you survived it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I think it was kind of necessary at that time, because I mean, we were, nutritionally very, very poor. So as things started I suppose we kind of got used to where we were, because you have to grieve for the life that you've lost. And literally when your world is flipped upside down in the blink of an eye, it takes so much processing. But gradually, as the weeks and the months, and the realization that he wasn't going to get his eyesight back, so then you have to adapt to that. The realization that he wasn't going to get his business back, so you have to adapt to that. And and he's always been very resourceful. And I think as a couple, because we're both fighters, we both got this tiger spirit, because we were being kept apart, actually physically kept apart. I didn't know if I was going to see my home again. I really was frightened for my life. But I thought, nobody's going to beat me, and I'm going to get back. We haven't brought him back from the dead for nothing. So I fought with everything I had to get out of that place. And he fought with everything he had to get better, because he wanted to be better for when I came home. So ironically, that may have actually strengthened both of us and given us that fight. And it definitely worked, because when I came back, we were working more together. And apparently 67% of people who have been in our situation or similar have split up. But what it actually did with us, it made our relationship that much stronger. So from there on, we were just on this road to recovery, and just really had no expectations of where we should be, or, you know, we hadn't been in that situation before. So we just handled it as we would have handled anything, which was, you know, we're together and we can beat this and we can get there. You know, we didn't know how we were good, what we were going to do, how we were going to do anything. But as the months went by and the years went by, what I did, because I'm a writer, so I wrote the pain out of my head and onto the page, and I think that was a really good therapy to get everything out, because it kind of helped to make sense of it. So that's where my book came from. You know, and obviously I was still heavily medicated. I was under the care of a psychiatrist. Nigel was under the care of the eye and the hospital, and having brain checkups and things like that. So my psychiatrist started to notice that, you know, that he said, I don't think this will happen to you again. I think it's an extreme set of circumstances. So he was reducing my medication, and he said, they've overdosed you. I don't know why they gave you that much. He said that was really dangerous. So he was horrified what had happened. So immediately he was reducing my dose as safely as he could. And then in the 2018 March, I found Juice Plus, just came across it randomly online. And I'd put an awful lot of weight on with the medication. I mean, so much so that I've always been an energetic person. You know, I've always been busy. I've always, you know, done lots of things. I'd had my own horse. I represented the county horse riding. So I was very fit and very active. But I couldn't get any of my clothes on, you know, and I was going to the point where I was no longer psychotic. I was going the other way. I was going depressed, you know, because... So I've said to Nigel, something needs to change. I'm ready to get myself back. I know I'm still in there. And he said, right, well, if you think it's going to work, he said, just give it a go and let's see what happens. Because we had very little money at that point as well. And it cost me, I think it was about £54. I'm not quite sure what that is in dollars. But anyway, he said, if you're going to do it properly. So I went, like I do with anything, I just throw myself into it. And actually very quickly, my health started to improve, my physical health. And with my physical health, therefore, my mental health was starting to improve. My psychiatrist was noticing a difference. And he said, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. And he was like reducing my meds regularly until he discharged me in August 2019. And by the January 2020, no, it was the end of that month. At the end of that year, I was med-free. And I've been med-free ever since. And he said, you know, if you have any trouble at all, just come back. He said, but I don't think you will. So that was really and it kind of opened my eyes that physical and mental health are so linked. And then it's really kind of gone from strength to strength. And then, you know, Nigel as well, I started to look into the nutrition and look into the omegas for his eye health and his brain health and things like that, and really look at what we were eating, and we supported each other. And since then, I mean, we've had to reassess what he does. He does motivational speaking. So we go around, we speak at schools, at colleges, for different communities. We go all over the country. We've spoken in front of solicitors, barristers, neurosurgeons, psychologists, you name it, whatever community will have us, we will go and speak as a couple, because I think it's inspiring for other people to see and hear that you can be right at the very bottom and there is always still some hope. And actually, by supporting each other, because he supports me in what I do and I support him in what he does, we really have gone from strength to strength in the last 8 years. Well, I would say 6 years, because the 2 years we were really no good to anybody straight after the accident. I think it's a process. You have to go through a grieving process. And we were kind of in victim mode. I just wanted somebody to blame, not for his accident. There was nobody to blame but him or whatever for the accident. But I wanted people to blame for what had happened to me after that. And I had to have a lot of counselling as well, because it was horrendous. So, and I think that fight kind of got me through that as well. But you have to move on from that. You can't live in a mindset where you're just looking for people to blame all the time. At some point you've got to get on with it, take responsibility really for your future.
I mean, I am just so amazed at how much you guys went through and how you've just come out of this with a desire to share your story and help others. And that is so amazing. And I think that's why I just am so fascinated with your story, because you really triumphed. I mean, you both really did that together. And part of, a big part of what we do within Telos and the Connection Circle is showing people and sharing with people how to make connections through building solid foundations, through love and friendship and supporting each other and really showing up as the best version of yourself. And how much of getting through all of that, would you say was really connected to the love that you had for each other?
Oh, 1,000,000%, because I think if there'd been any kind of animosity or doubt between us, that it would have ended our marriage within an instant, because we've both gone through so much, and had to watch each other suffer, and when you watch the person that you love suffering, it's you do anything to make it better. And I think there's been a lot of give and take, and we're able to do things independently now. At first, we really clung to each other because we'd been forcibly separated. So it was really difficult to do anything on our own. But as the time has gone on, we're lucky. We have some family that has been very supportive, and some close friends that have been very supportive. Some walked away, but you can't really be responsible for that either. You can only really focus on your own energy, not worry about other people's energy. And we were really focused on each other and getting each other through it. So, I mean, there was no question that we wouldn't get through it. I don't think that wasn't even a thought in our heads, because we had only just got together, and we've both been through a lot of stuff up to, age 40, whatever it was. And when you find somebody that you connect with so deeply, there was no way on earth I was going to lose him or let anything between us. And I think he felt, well, he did feel the same as well. We spend an awful lot of time with each other. And I think through lockdown as well, obviously we were so used to being together, it wasn't a problem at all, where I think maybe a lot of couples had a bit of an issue through lockdown if they're used to being out and at work and stuff like that. But because we spend so much time together, and we don't mind. I mean, he's just done his radio amateur's license, and he said, "Oh, I've got a call tonight, but it's outside in the garage. It's a bit cold out there." And he said, "Is it all right if I go outside? It's at 7:30." I said, "Well, my call's at 7:30 as well." So he'll be talking to people from I don't know where, but he's got his call at 7:30, and I'm talking to you guys. So we are very much, we do our own thing. But like tomorrow we're going to London for a couple of days, so we do all sorts.
Fun. I think it is important to come together and have some ventures together as a couple. It's kind of like the story of you've got your base camp where you're together and you're doing things together, but then some days you're climbing different mountains and then you come back to base camp. And I think that's important factor in relationships and marriages, to have differentiation of self, to have your own goals and your own hobbies and things of that nature, but to support one another. And it's clear that you guys have such a great love for each other and support each other. And I want to just circle back to the health aspect of it, because that too, just talking about, how your trauma kind of started to spiral into more of a place of depression. And I think Alyssa can speak a lot to, I mean, we both have a background in health, but she can speak a lot to this connection between health and fitness and mental health. So
absolutely. Like I said earlier, the connection between healthy body, healthy mind, healthy finances, healthy relationships, it all just comes full circle. And it really does, start with the self. I'm also a chronically ill warrior, along with knowing and having that health background. So I really connected with a lot of parts of your story. A couple of things that really stood out to me. One thing that you said was that you didn't feel heard and you just wanted to feel heard. And then the second thing was like you were looking for somebody to blame. And so the fact that you two, instead of taking, those are two major things that a lot of times will lead into a toxic situation, or rather toxic habits that will ruin relationships. So I think there's a little bit more digging to do into that. Like there has to be, I know that there's certain specific tools and guidelines that you and your husband, use and follow to not fall into those typical habits that those sorts of things, like not feeling heard and looking for somebody to blame, will lead you to. What do you think? Like, was it just like making a point to make a connection on that? Or what was it?
I, I think it was because it was authorities I was looking to blame, not Nigel. We weren't looking to blame each other. I was blaming other organisations and things for letting us down very badly. But you're right, you can live in that kind of toxicity and then you become very negative, and and it can have an effect on your relationship. And Nigel, I mean, we were having more bad days than good, and I think gradually we've turned it around to having more good days than bad, and we rarely have a bad day now. But you have to work a lot on your mindset, and talking to each other. We never really held back. We never really kept anything from each other, although it was a while until Nigel said, he said, I blame myself. I shouldn't have gone. And I said, well, these things happen. I've never once blamed him for anything that happened to me. It was a
That's
catalyst.
a really
yes.
big point to mark right there, is that you never blamed him and you never let that, like, oh, I just want to blame somebody, ever. You never put that on your spouse.
No.
And that's huge.
Right.
Because I think if I had done, how do you get over that? And I think, I
It's
don't.
hard to come back from.
Pardon?
Yeah.
So that's hard to come back from.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was just a set of circumstances. No, as I say, I blamed the authorities. I blamed the people that should have been caring for me and abused me instead. Preying on somebody that was so vulnerable, knowing my background.
Can I jump in really quick, Julie? You mentioned that a couple times, and I would love to hear how you work through those emotions, because obviously, you have turned your life around. You live a life of joy and love. You've created a tribe of people that support you. And how did you take the negative thoughts that you had towards the authorities, and how did you flip that?
I think I felt like I was banging my head against a brick wall, because I literally wrote to everybody I could think of to try and get some justice. And I had a letter from Prince William. You know, that's how incensed I was, and the health minister and the government, and nobody would or could do anything. My local member of parliament, I had them write to the hospital twice, and you know that because I would follow things up, because I'm like a dog with a bone. I don't let it go. Because justice is massive in here. If there's been an injustice, I want it righted. That's fight for justice.
Sure.
And anyway, apparently the letter had been lost, and since it hadn't gone to the right address. This is from a government member of parliament. They said it had gone to the wrong address. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't think so. And by the time it had gone to the right address, oh dear, the records had been lost. So, you know, and I just thought, I am never going to uncover the truth here. Those people know what happened. I know what happened. What is the point of even trying to? I could drive myself mad, and then they would win.
Exactly.
You know, and I'm not about to let them rule the rest of my life. I need to just get on with it. Don't think I didn't try and that I wasn't going to absolutely kick ass. Sorry, if I could, I did.
No, you get to kick ass.
You know,
but at some point you just have to come to peace and for yourself.
You have to, because otherwise, when does it end? You know, I could still be fighting and putting all my energy into something that is futile. So what is the point? What is the point? You have to focus your energy on something that's going to bring you joy, because we only get this body. So, you know, I'm 56. You know, I don't know how long I've got left on the planet, but I want to enjoy every single day. And because I'm now surrounded with a community of positive, lovely people that we all want the best for each other. And I want my clients and my team to feel like I do every day. When I wake up, I cannot wait to start the day. I cannot wait to get to work. I cannot wait to think, oh, right, what are we going to do today then? It's every single day is an exciting day, whether I'm just walking the dog on the beach or whether we're going to London or whatever, it doesn't matter. I've practiced my gratitudes daily as well. Every single day I write at least 10 gratitudes that I'm grateful for. And it can be very basic, like I'm so glad that I've got hot water, you know, I'm so thankful that we've got clean air to breathe. Thank you that my legs work. You know, I ran a half marathon this year, and I got a place. Well, I nearly got a place in the London Marathon as well. First I didn't, then I did, then I didn't again. So I had to keep flipping my mindset. And at one point that would have literally flipped me, because I think coping with change is very difficult when you're poorly. You know, when you've got mental health issues, anything, it has to be set in stone. And any plan B, which we know life gives you a plan B a lot of the time, but you get a plan B and it's like, oh, don't know what to do now. But now, if I can adapt really quickly, you know, and okay, right. So I'm not going to be training. Oh, I am going to be training. Right. Okay. Right. So we'll get that in place. Oh, I'm not going to be training. So just life keeps throwing these different curveballs at me, but I cope with it much, much better now. I love every day.
I love it. I mean, kudos to you on the run. Seriously, that's an amazing accomplishment. And I definitely see, you know, when I'm on Facebook and I see you talking to your tribe, and I just see that brightness, that light that you're sharing with everyone within your tribe. And I love it. And I think I want to, you know, there's so many other questions I can ask you, and I could spend the whole evening with you. But I do want, I know you have to get off. It's getting later there. And, but I
can talk all night.
Oh yeah, so can we, huh, Alyssa? But I do want to
go on for hours.
Right. So I want to conclude with what practices or principles do you recommend for creating a supportive and growth-oriented community?
Wow. Well, I think Alyssa said something that I've mentioned before, is listening. It's very important. Everybody's individual. Everybody has different needs. And I think if you feel heard and valued, that's massive. I walked away from my hairdresser's a year ago because I've been going to her for 18 years and I just didn't feel valued. It was a throwaway comment she made. She messed up my hair, first time ever, went back, did it again, whatever. And I was going to New York the next day and I was mortified. But the thing that made me not go back was she said, "Oh well, I'm not really that worried because you're good with your hair." And it was like I'm like, "Oh, okay, I don't feel valued anymore. I'm not
Right.
coming back." And if you don't feel valued in an environment, why go back? Why put yourself in there? So that I think that's massive.
That is big. Yes.
Yeah.
Love that. I think
Just
it comes down to an exchange of energy in any relationship, right? So it's
yeah,
interesting that you bring up your hairstylist because that is a relationship,
yeah,
especially when you've been seeing them for a while
yeah,
and you forge this friendship with them. And it could be really anyone. It's friendships, love relationships,
yeah,
marriages. And there's really this it requires a balance. It requires an exchange of energy. And if that's out of balance, then it won't work. And part of creating that balance is feeling valued and listened to and heard and just having good communication and feeling that love and energy that they're exchanging with you as well. So I love that you brought that story up.
you're welcome. I just
And
think, yeah, with Nigel, we talk to each other. We don't. I mean, obviously, occasionally it'll irritate me. And so it's like Love Actually in our house at the moment because I'm learning Portuguese and he's learning to play the drums. And sometimes I'll come home and he's playing the drums and think, oh, he's on the blooming drums again. But then I think I'm so glad he is because there was a point where he wasn't going to be doing anything, but we talk to each other. We don't let anything kind of go unspoken, that if we've got an issue with each other, we will just talk about it. And, occasionally, I can't remember the last time we had a crossword, actually, maybe a year ago. I'm not sure. But, that doesn't kind of happen because we talk things out, I think it's
right,
important to have your own interests as well as doing things together and support each other in those interests. Yeah.
I think there
love
are
that.
three major things and things that we've all talked about here that at Telos we talk about a lot and we hit on the points a lot. One is really tuning in with yourself, knowing who you are and staying true to that. Two is truly caring for others, right? And three is communication to create those forms of connections of all kinds. So you've really hit on every single point of everything that we're constantly talking about. I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing your story so openly.
Oh, thank you. No, you're welcome. I'll talk about it anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank you
for
so
inviting
much.
me. It's been lovely.
It's been amazing. I've learned even so much more about you through on this talk, and what I want to do is invite you back to talk to our community within the Connection Circle about more about health and how they can incorporate Juice Plus into their routine, whatever that looks like. I know you have a lot of valuable information to share in that health arena. So I definitely want to invite you back to talk to our community about that and support you in that. And so tell everyone how we can find you because you have, I know we're going to add the link to the YouTube video about your journey with Nigel. And then you also have a book out.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I want to be able to put a link on that. And can you tell everyone how they can find you?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Facebook as Julie Lim or The Feel Good Lady. That's my business
Mhm.
page. I just share mostly about Juice Plus on there. It used to be my holistic therapy page, and I'm actually thinking of doing some more crystal therapy next year. I'm being drawn to. I love the chakra balancing and crystal facials and things like that. So I may bring that back. You can find me as Joni Daniels Writer. That's Joni as in Mitchell. Joni Daniels Writer. On Facebook. I don't put a lot on there at the moment. I'm studying for a master's in writing for script and screen because I want to adapt my book. And I am on Amazon. Joni Daniels,
Okay.
The Hub.
Awesome.
That's my book, is The Hub, H-U-B. And it's very gritty. It's a raw account of descent into mental illness, really.
Yeah. Wow, so amazing. And you know what? And admittedly,
I'm gonna order that now.
I know, admittedly, I haven't read it because I knew you had mentioned it at one point, but I didn't know it was on Amazon. So we'll have to read up on that and bring you back to talk about that as well.
Yes.
So amazing.
And then my husband and Nigel, sorry, I'm just saying Nigel is Blind Bloke Racing, and he's on Facebook, he's on Insta, and he's on YouTube as well.
Okay.
Nigel,
We'll definitely tag a clip of this onto our socials as well, tagging both of your socials with it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, we want to. So at this point, I'll leave it running, but we're done. Yay, we made it through.
Thank you so much. I love, oh my gosh, your story. It's so inspiring. There were so many times that I was thinking about things that have happened in my life, to me, for me, around me, people that I know going through similar circumstances. And it's just so inspiring and so amazing to hear such a success story. And even though you guys will probably continue to fight through certain battles, right? You're never just going to be like, okay, the trauma's over and done, we're good. You're going to have to continue to fight on. But seeing as where you were versus where you are with your businesses and with your speaking and your sharing, you're truly sharing and caring. And I think that is going to bring you so much more success. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I mean, December is this time of year is particularly tough for us because the anniversary of the accident is the 27th. So, but each year it does get a little bit easier, I have to say. Yeah. But the first couple of years, we couldn't even speak to anybody or see anybody or anything like that. But last year we were in Bermuda. We're not in Bermuda this year. But definitely it gets easier year on year. But I think you're right. Trauma something that huge never completely goes away.
No.
Never. It can't because...
Yeah, it's really about reframing it too. I think you guys have done such a fantastic job in, manifesting this, this totally different life and together, and really fought through that together. Yes. And reframing what all of that, because a lot of these challenges really are put in our lives to make us stronger, to bring us closer together. And we have a choice. We have a choice when we're faced with those challenges. So
yeah, me too.
All time. Just go ahead, comment away.
To either come together or let, go separate ways. And you guys